I'm Jeremy. Today's day 255 of reading. Today we're reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Let's get started. We're on page 269. The flames inside the goblet turned suddenly red again. Sparks began to fly from it. This is the ultimate climax. Next moment, a tongue of flame shot into the air. A charred piece of parchment floated out of it. The whole room gasped. Dumbledore caught the piece of parchment and held it at arm's length, so that he could read it by the light of the flames, which had turned back to blue-white. "The champion for Durmstrang," he read in a strong, clear voice, "will be Victor Crumb." "No surprises there!" yelled Ron as a storm of applause and cheering swept across the hall. Harry saw Victor Crumb rise from the Slytherin table and slouch up toward Dumbledore. He turned right, walked along the staff table, and disappeared through the door into the next chamber. "Bravo, Victor!" boomed Cockcroft so loudly that everyone could hear him, even over the applause. "Knew you had it in you!" The clapping and chatting died down. Now everyone's attention was focused again on the goblet, which, seconds later, turned red once more. A second piece of parchment shot out of it, propelled by the flames. "The champion for Bucksbaddens is Dumbledore," said Dumbledore. "It's Fleur Delacour." "It's her! Run!" Harry shouted as a girl who so resembled a Viola got gracefully to her feet, shook back her sheet of silvery blonde hair, and swept up between the Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff tables. Wait, quick double checking here. I'm pretty sure she married one of the Weasleys. "Oh, look, they're all disappointed," Hermione said over the noise, nodding toward the remainder of the Bucksbaddens party. Disappointed was a bit of an understatement, Harry thought. Two of the girls who had not been selected had dissolved into tears and were sobbing with their heads on their arms. When Fleur Delacour had too vanished into the side chamber, the silence fell again. But this time, it was a silence so stiff with excitement you could almost taste it. The Hogwarts champion next. The Goblet of Fire turned red once more. Sparks showered out of it. The tongue of flame shot high into the air, and from its tip, Dumbledore pulled the third piece of parchment. "The Hogwarts champion," he called, "is Cedric Diggory." Harry's coming. Definitely not foreshadowing. "No," said Ron loudly, but nobody heard him except Harry. The uproar from the next table was too great. Every single Hufflepuff had jumped to his or her feet, screaming and stamping, as Cedric made his way past them, grinning broadly, and headed off toward the chamber behind the teacher's table. Indeed, the applause for Cedric went on for so long, it was some time before Dumbledore could make himself heard again. "Excellent!" Dumbledore called happily, as the last of the tumult died down. "Well, now we have our 3 champions." I think he means 4. "I am sure I can count upon all of you, including the remaining students from Bucksbaddens and Durmstrang, to give your champion every ounce of support you can muster. By cheering your champion on, you'll contribute in a very real... Oh boy." But Dumbledore suddenly stopped speaking, and it was apparent to everybody what had distracted him. The fire in the goblet had just turned red again. Sparks were flying out of it. A long flame shot suddenly into the air, and borne upon it was another piece of parchment. Automatically, it seemed to reach out a long hand and seized the parchment. He held it out and stared at the name written upon it. There was a long pause, during which Dumbledore stared at the slip in his hand, and everyone in the room stared at Dumbledore. And then Dumbledore cleared his throat and read out, "Harry Potter." Yeah, I told you. What did I say? Chapter 17. The 4 Champions. Harry sat there, aware that every head in the Great Hall had turned to look at him. He was stunned. He felt numb. He was surely dreaming. He had not heard correctly. There was no applause. A buzzing, as though of angry bees, was starting to fill the hall. Some students were standing up to get a better look at Harry as he sat, frozen, in his seat. Up at the top table, Professor McGonagall had got to her feet and swept past Ludo Bagman and Professor Cockcroft to whisper urgently to Professor Dumbledore, who bent his ear toward her, frowning slightly. Harry turned to Ron and Hermione. Beyond them, he saw the long Gryffindor table all watching him, open-mouthed. "I didn't put my name in," Harry said blankly. "You know I didn't." Both of them just stared just as blankly back. At the top of the table, Professor Dumbledore had straightened up, nodding to Professor McGonagall. "Harry Potter," he called again. "Harry, up here if you please." "Go on," Hermione whispered, giving Harry a slight push. Harry got to his feet, trod on the hem of his robes, and stumbled slightly. He set off up the gap between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff tables. It felt like an immensely long walk. The top table didn't seem to be getting nearer at all. He could feel hundreds and hundreds of eyes upon him, as though each were a searchlight. The buzzing grew louder and louder. After what seemed like an hour, he was right in front of Dumbledore, feeling the stares of the teachers upon him. "Well, through the door, Harry," said Dumbledore. He wasn't smiling. Harry moved off along the teacher's table. Hagrid was seated right at the end. He did not wink at Harry, or wave, or give any of his usual signs of greeting. He looked completely astonished and stared at Harry as he passed like everyone else. Harry went through the door out of the great hall and found himself in a smaller room, lined with paintings of witches and wizards. A handsome fire was roaring in the fireplace opposite him. The faces of the portraits turned to look at him as he entered. He saw a wizard witch flit out of the frame of her picture and into the one next to it, which contained a wizard with a walrus mustache. The wizard witch started whispering in his ear. Victor Crumb, Cedric Diggory, and Fleur Delacour were grouped around the fire. They looked strangely impressive, silhouetted against the flames. Crumb, hunched up and brooding, was leaning against the mantelpiece, slightly apart from the other two. Cedric was standing with his hands behind his back, staring into the fire. Fleur Delacour looked around when Harry walked in and threw back her sheet of long, silvery hair. "What is it?" she said. "Did they want us back in the hall?" She thought he had come to deliver a message. Harry didn't know how to explain what had just happened. He just stood there, looking at the three champions. It struck him how very tall all of them were. There was a sound of scurrying feet behind them, and Ludo Bagman entered the room. He took Harry by the arm and led him forward. "Extraordinary," he muttered, squeezing Harry's arm. "Absolutely extraordinary. Gentlemen, lady," he added, approaching the fireside and addressing the other three. "May I introduce, incredible though it may seem, the fourth Triwizard champion." Victor Crumb stood up. His surly face darkened as he surveyed Harry. Cedric looked nonplussed. He looked from Bagman to Harry and back again, as though sure he must have misheard what Bagman had said. Fleur Delacour, however, tossed her hair, smiling, and said, "Oh, very funny joke, Mr. Bagman." "Joke?" Bagman repeated, bewildered. No, not at all. Harry's name just came out of the Goblet of Fire." Crumb's thick eyebrows contracted slightly. Cedric was looking politely bewildered. Fleur frowned. "But evidently there has been a mistake," she said contemptuously to Bagman. "He cannot compete. He is too young." "Well, it is amazing," said Bagman, rubbing his smooth chin and smiling down at Harry. "But as you know, the age restriction—" "Thank you, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow." Tomorrow I'm going to read page 275.